session is going to be a little bit different. And I want to call in actually one of the people who inspired this change to the program. It was actually Michelle. Michelle and I were having a conversation earlier this year about Learning Lab and what she would find to be valuable in future iterations of the program. And one of the things that she suggested was, I really want to not just learn from you or from the leaders, but I want to learn from the other people in the room. And so what we're looking to do in the next years is evolve our Learning Lab community in much more of a mastermind situation where we're working with leaders that are learning from each other. And so today's format is going to feel a little different for y'all. I mentioned earlier, but if you want to, cameras on is an option. We're going to have a little bit more of a discussion style today. And what I've actually prepared is much more of a workshop style presentation. And so there's going to be a lot of moments and opportunities to chime in, to share kind of your own experiences, because I think it's a pretty powerful group of people we've gotten together and that there's a lot to learn from each other. So with that being said, the way I want today to kick off is to just sit up really, really tall, because we're taking on a topic that feels, I think, super heady, but I want us to really come to a different approach to strategic planning today. I really want us to be heart forward in our approach. And so if you're willing to get a little woo with me, go ahead and ground your feet on the floor, sit up super nice and tall, and close your eyes for a second here. And let's just take a couple deep breaths. And if possible, taking a moment to just come into this present moment, letting go of whatever you were doing before, or wherever you're headed after this moment. And just as we get connected here, taking a second to establish a pretty clear intention for this process today. It's a process that hopefully will be inspirational and a little bit playful, and allow you to shape some vision for the future for yourself as well as for your business. And so, with this idea of calling in an intention, just coming with some clarity to what is the energy you want to bring to this session today? What is the things you hope to learn? What are some things you might want to share? What are the things you want to walk away with? Taking a couple more deep breaths. Letting go any anxiety, nervous energy, tension. Recognizing that we are in a community of learners that we're excited to share with each other. Okay, awesome. When you're ready, let's open our eyes and dive into the work. So this is the shape of our session today. And I know some of you participated earlier this month in this amazing session that we did with Sarah Elliott, really around the difference in the power of intentions as opposed to just setting goals. And we're starting our session today with a similar spirit of looking back. I really think that reflection is an essential part of the planning process. And I think that the space that we've all been in is like, and onward, like get into 2021 already. But I think it's a really pertinent time for us to reflect on the things that we did well and the lessons that we've learned from the past year. So that's where we'll begin today. And then we're going to start looking forward. We're going to do what I call recasting. So this is where we start to shape our vision for where we want to head in 21. And then we're going to talk about how we can build strategic planning and what I call like agile adjustment into the regular flow of our business, because I think this is something that a lot of folks do one time. And then they're like, great, I got that strategic plan done, check, set it aside and forget to check in with it as the year goes. And I think this year, more than any year in the history of business, has taught us the importance of really being agile in our planning abilities. And so I'm going to talk to you today and hopefully hear from you all too about some agile ways that we can be adjusting as we go. Sound good? Okay. All right. So I want you to take a moment to just look back a little bit. This year, without a doubt, was one for the history books. And as the year unfolded, it kind of started to pummel us with experiences and lessons and really, really hard questions for us to ask about ourselves, to ask about society, maybe to even ask about our business and what was or wasn't working. And I think it's really important to take the insights gathered from these critical moments and these critical questions to inform where we go next and how we can realign our energy and our resources. So if you have a journal with you today, please pull it out. And the first step of our process is going to be backward focus. So I'm going to pull a lot of whiteboard today, y'all. This is how you know it's going to be good. This puppy over into the screen. Adjust here a little bit. Oh, wrong way. Okay. So the first thing that we're asking ourselves today are, what are the core reflections for this year when it comes to the intentions that you set for your company in 2020? So if you can, what I want you to do on your paper is kind of something similar to what I've done here. Just setting yourself up with 5 columns. And the first one at the top, we're going to say it was our intention. So take a moment to do this. I just realized I need to go grab my big pen. So set up your columns and lines, and at the top, write your intentions. And so if you can, I want you to kind of transport yourself back to where you were in January of 2020. And this might be a little challenging, but you know, a lot of things shifted as the year went on. So I'm curious to think about, what were your hopes for the year ahead? What were you aiming to bring into the year? You know, who were the people you were hoping to attract to your business? What did success look like for you in your mind's eye as you went into 2020? Go ahead. So take a few seconds here to journal. I'm going to grab my big pen, and then we're going to do some sharing. Alrighty. Who is brave and willing, and I might give you guys a few seconds more, but who is brave enough and willing to share with us what some of their intentions were headed into 2020?
Are these personal intentions and work intentions?
Great question. Definitely think there's an overlap here, Cecily. So it could have been, you know, for example, one in my life was, I really wanted to take better care of my health this year. It was really important to me that I restructure my calendar, because I kept on, in the year before, I kept saying, oh, I don't have time, you know, to work out, or I don't have time, you know, to meditate. And so a big intention for me personally was to take care of myself, but that overlapped into the professional space for sure, because I had to do some lifestyle and work time adjustment there. Anyone feeling brave and bold? And it can be challenging. It can be a little bit tricky to get back into this brain space, I think, too, because January 2020 feels like a lifetime ago. Michelle, did you want to share?
Yeah, I will. So I came into 2020, you know, finally starting to build up. And one of the goals that I've had is based on the size of the firm that I work in. While I still want to work with some of my smaller clients, was to work on larger clients and to do more on the Sage Intact side. I started articles, which I was hoping to, you know, have those kind of, you know, finished and start to, you know, do more on that. Definitely more on the self-care and trying to schedule within the day, you know, time to, you know, stop and, you know, take care of myself and take the time that's necessary for, you know, preparing the appropriate food and all of that, and make sure that I got, you know, that done. And what else? And, you know, basically that, you know, that was it. And just finally really documenting everything within the business and getting processes and knowing how we wanted to do things.
Okay.
I think that's pretty much it. But not, of course, now those were the intentions. That's not how, of course, it all turned out, of course, but
Yeah, but it's important to go back to the spirit of, right? Because we always have an opportunity to begin again. And you'll see as we get to kind of these next steps, we'll evaluate a little bit how we did, or maybe where things got off track. And thank you. I love these, Michelle. Who else wants to share?
I will share. I only have a couple because I really can't remember. One was to get adequate sleep. That was just like a basic thing that I couldn't seem to manage. And you know, I can't really remember any business ones, but I mean, a lot of it was because personally, our kids, they're like have learning and behavior issues. And so it was just to get less chaos in our personal life. And, you know, that way I could focus on the business. So those were the only two I've grasped as of now.
And you know, and I think this is a good one too. If it's hard to recall, you know, we can always sit with the question a little bit further, or go back. You know, sometimes there'll be, you know, a note or something we left for ourselves. It was funny. I went back to some of my journals from last December, and that helped me trigger my brain as to where I was hoping to go in 2020. Gina, do you want to share?
Yeah, I was trying to, like, I don't remember intentions necessarily, but I started the year out merging with another firm that kind of fell apart in February. So where I was in January in terms of where I wanted to go with my business is very different than how it played out through the year. So that's really interesting to reflect back on.
Yeah.
Definitely personally was really taking better care of myself, not just fitness wise, but, you know, meditation and just being present. Yeah, I think that was a big intention in January last year.
Beautiful, beautiful. Anyone else feel called to share? No pressure. Okay. All right.
I remembered one more.
Yes.
Oh, go ahead.
One of the things that our group wanted to do, because we're a really small, like boutique software consulting firm. Yeah. And in 2020, we were really trying to get rid of those bad clients, and that did not happen. So, but that was the intention, because it's really hard to be boutique-y and scale. And that's was our intentions. And of course, we all had the health intentions, and those didn't work out either. But we can reassess.
Yeah, that's why we're here today. Cecily, you had one more.
Yeah, the other one I had was to get upgrade our office, like just make it look nice. And I just pulled out my journal or my notebook from the beginning of the year. And yeah, I was in the full getting the office nicer mode, which I kind of abandoned at some point.
Well, like I said, the journal triggers the memory, right? It gets us going a little bit. Awesome. Okay, so we're gonna keep going through our core kind of questions, but I encourage you, sit with these. If it's like it's not quite coming, come back to this, because a memory might jog you, and you might realize, oh, I've got something else that was an intention that came through. All right, so our next one are milestones, and this might be, you know, an accomplishment per se, but milestones I think are a really important way for us to mark time. And this was a really important exercise for me to stop beating myself up about what I felt like I didn't accomplish this year. And milestones could be, you know, a big one for me this year was we got a physical office. Another milestone was navigating at home learning. Another milestone might be, you know, a birth or a death that happened this year. So this is anything that was an eventful moment that really marked time for you this year. So go ahead and take a moment to just reflect on what those milestones were, things that really allowed you to stop and remember what day it was, you know. And then we'll go popcorn style. So if anybody just wants to jump in, you feel called to share, go ahead and do that. But I'll give you a few more seconds here. All right. Does anyone have one milestone they want to share? Maybe Melissa, Gina.
Paid off a loan.
Say it again.
We paid off a home equity loan, which was a big deal.
Huge deal. Awesome.
I hired my first employee.
Beautiful.
I'm jealous.
That's a big one. The hired the first employee one, I feel like, is a pretty epic milestone. There's a lot that we get on the other side of in terms of fear and, feeling like we've got to do it alone, or can I really support somebody else in addition to myself? So that's a huge one, Melissa.
Agreed.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
terrifying.
It is terrifying. It really is. And these can be personal too. They don't have to be business related, but important markers in time. Anyone else want to share?
Yeah, I think a big one for me was getting an agreement that essentially doubled my income and allowed me to hire a full-time employee. So that was a turning point, big time.
How did that experience make you feel about yourself to be able to see that you could sign a client of that caliber?
Really good. And how it came about was even better because it came from a referral of another client where I had won that agreement from. I was up against my former employer on that, and so they had chosen to go with me, it felt pretty good, that in itself. And then he referred this other really large client to me. So how that all came about was just really affirming.
Beautiful, beautiful. So if these milestones maybe spark anything else for you, jot them down. Then we're going to go to our next one. Our next one, slightly different, achievements. The core question is, what worked well this year for your company? So achievement might have been accomplishing something that we set out to do this year. An achievement might have been recognizing that there was a new way of working in business. For example, I know a lot of people who at first felt like they were achieving stronger client relationships because they were working with clients more closely over Zoom, but maybe got to a point where things fell off a cliff too. But what worked well this year for your company? And this is one of those moments where we've got to really take a minute to be proud of ourselves, brag a little bit about what went well.
I have one.
Yeah.
So we're 100% virtual, and we've always tried to be ahead of the curve.
Yeah.
And it really, we didn't have to adjust anything.
Yeah.
During the pandemic. I mean, clients did, but we didn't. We were set up to do it, so that served us well. And that.
Yeah. I felt for all those people who suddenly had to scramble and implement a lot of new tools and tech all of a sudden. Who else? Michelle? Jean? Anyone else?
Yeah, I mean, we, we were more of we always had people working from home and you could always work from home, but it was really not the norm, where of course now it is. And
Mhm.
tested it out and we're like 240 people. When we tested it out right after March 16th, everything
Mhm.
really worked. So, and now I see that the firm is, and my managing partner is much more open to technology than he was before.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's a mindset shift right there, and I think that's the thing is a lot of folks are like, oh, we have to be in the office to get work done, right? That's kind of the old world mentality. When in reality, you might be able to find, other types of productivity or other types of collaboration, or just be able to get more done, if you're at home. Obviously, it's a little variable depending on who you've got in the household.
I
Some
mean,
people worked really well for.
we still have some people, some people are, struggle with it more and feel that you can't have your pulse on things as much.
Yeah.
That there's not that personal touch. And I can sort of see that.
Mm-hmm.
Same time, like for me, I used to go to the office 5 days a week, 6 days in when it was busy. And now I know when I go back, and I'll go back to the office, but I will not go back all the time. I mean,
Yeah.
I moved into a bigger place and I made myself a place to work that
Mhm.
which I never thought, and I kind of like it. And it also, it helps to some degree, and in what's been interesting about it is that it's a different style of working where
Mm-hmm.
you may sit at the computer more hours because you don't have that travel, but then you take the breaks that you need. I just like an hour ago, I grilled some chicken to, add to my lunches and things like that. So,
Yeah.
nice.
Yeah. So I would say, also I would add to achievement where, aligning back to your intention, Michelle, there's a different way of working that you've discovered. It sounds like it's a little bit more flexible and it fits a little bit more around kind of some of those goals. And partially it's because, you've got more time at home, but it's also because you've created space for yourself to work in that different way. So that's an achievement in my opinion. Anyone else feel called to share? Love to get a third one up here. Okay. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, sorry, I was on mute. I think what's worked well, and it had me a little anxious at some point in the year when I realized I've hired this team now and I haven't defined the culture. And I kind of freaked out one weekend and got all these books and was like, I need to do this. And, I ended up not really doing anything and just having a lot more conversation with my team. And I've got a very supportive team, not just to me, but each other. They've built a really strong relationship with each other and they enjoy each other.
Yeah.
Our calls are fun. It's just, it evolved naturally. And I think it's because, and I think a lot of it has to do with really being pretty firm in who I am and who I want to be, and so I think that's just kind of, I didn't need to force it. I didn't need to, I mean, I still want to have more definition around it, but I think it's worked out well.
Beautiful. So what I wrote for you, Gina, was prioritizing connecting with the team to build culture. Like instead of being like, I got to follow this guidebook, you instead created the opportunity for that connection to happen, and then out of that culture came. Does that feel true?
Yes.
Awesome. Okay, this is the one that might take up the whole page. Feel free to let it a little bit out on paper here. What didn't pan out in the way that you envisioned or hoped? And again, this might come from the intention. This might have come in the form of something a little bit more tactical inside of the business. This might just be like hashtag COVID-19. But what were the hurdles that came out? Because one of the ways that we kind of take their power away or we learn to work with them differently in the future is by naming them as they are.
I think my biggest hurdle was not merging with that other firm. That was the first one, and then went down the path again. And that's a great relationship. That the second one, she ended up deciding to sell her practice instead. So, but she's referred a lot of clients to me, which has been awesome. So those were two pretty big hurdles.
Okay.
Yeah, those were mine.
Yeah. So you had a vision for the merger. It didn't come together the way that you had envisioned or hoped. And don't worry, I'm going to ask you another question that's really important in a second to unpack that one a little bit further. Cecily?
Well, of course, there was like less productivity due to the distance learning, and we were going to hire somebody this year, but nothing. We've just had years and years of not being able to focus on the business because of the kids and all that stuff. But yeah, mainly the homeschooling, which we kind of got down eventually a little bit.
All very relatable, and I feel like anyone who has navigated this year is Herculean in their own way. Especially anybody who is navigating distance learning. I don't think any of us planned in our intentions for the year to become full-time teachers on top of everything else we had going on. Anyone else feel called to share a hurdle that stands out that didn't align with your original vision for the year, besides obviously the obvious of COVID-19?
I can share a little bit.
Yeah.
Our team has all been remote. So we were able to adjust to that, but we weren't able to adjust to all our clients being remote. So boundaries, in the beginning, it was good and we were able to support our clients, but then we had to put some more boundaries in place because everybody was working like 24/7.
Yeah.
That was different. So
I feel that this year boundaries was a core conversation topic inside our team. And I swear we were passing around books and podcasts, and everywhere we looked, it was a reestablishment of boundaries, because I think those were easier to keep prior to everybody being a part of the remote work life. Simple things, but a lot of learnings and lessons here.
Yep.
Anyone else? Okay. So our last question, what did you learn? What were the lessons when you look at all of these things? It could be a learning from an intention or a milestone or an achievement or a hurdle. But what did you learn? Did you learn that boundaries are really important? Did you learn that it's really important to get to know people prior to diving in head first to do business with them? Did you learn that you can actually get more shit done than you thought you could with tiny humans at home? What was the biggest lessons you learned this year?
Trust my gut.
Love it. All right. Anyone else?
I had
sorry.
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that relationships, that the people that you have the relationships, whether it's your people that you work with, your family, whatever, those are the most important thing. Everything else comes second.
Cecily.
So I had a personal relationship disintegrate.
Yeah.
And it just made me realize that there are some things about this person that I had kind of overlooked. And kind of and it just made me realize after the relationship was over, I felt so good, which was surprising to me. And it just made me realize that I really need to integrate my values. As I've been hearing from you too. It's like integrate my values into not just into like, who I am in my business, but who I am in all my personal relationships. Like if somebody is not integrated in like my values, kind of all the way around.
Yeah.
That's what I need. So that's something that was illuminating to me this year.
Yeah. Who else had a similar experience to this? I think, we've got a little bit of a theme coming out here. Okay. So there's values. We've got relationships being the most important thing. There's some gut check, which I think is our gut is maybe sometimes our biggest indicator in terms of core values. So does anyone else have a similar thread here that they want to call in?
I learned to not sweat the small stuff and to play the long game.
I love it. Okay. So looking at these lessons, and again, you can always come back to this, but I want you to take a moment and thank yourself. Give yourself a little bit of gratitude. This year was really intense. Obviously, we learned a lot. Obviously, we evaluated a lot. And most importantly, we now get the opportunity to take these lessons and shape a different year ahead for ourselves. So let's talk about how we want to do that. Before we dive on though, the last kind of area that you can unpack further, if you want to take these questions a little bit like from a homework perspective, and my goal in Learning Lab is to not give quite as much homework, but I feel like the end of the year season is like a really, really critical time for us to just do deep reflection. And so as some of you know, I do a 21-day journaling process where I just ask myself an ongoing series of questions that really help me call in vision and intention for the next chapter of my life. And one of the most important questions that I asked this year was kind of a two-parter. It was, who do I want to be? And then what do I want to do to become that person? And these are kind of my guiding questions as I'm shaping everything for next year, my strategic planning, my marketing, who I want to hire, the way that I'm evolving this program. So it's a really good time of the year, especially if you're getting any downtime in the holidays, to just set aside a little bit of extra time to ask yourself any other questions that might help you unpack this past year. Because I think that the crappiest thing would be if we didn't take all of these things that showed up in our face in 2020 and took a moment to process those lessons and pull them forward in the year ahead. So does anyone have any other questions that they might want to ask themselves, or journaling questions that have been really powerful for them in this year? I know, Gina, Gina, did you do the 21-day vision quest as well? No, you didn't. Okay. Well, if y'all need any inspiration or ideas for that process, I'm happy to share after the fact as well. All right, let's start to look forward. So there are about 1,000,001 ways to go about building a strategic plan for yourself. But what I mentioned at the start of this session today is that I think it's really important for us to come from a heart-centered place. And my goal today is to impart some of the ideas and processes that I use in my life and my work, as well as my coaching work with clients. And I want you to really take a moment to make this your own. So this is meant to give you kind of guardrails, but it's not meant to say like, this is the only way to plan. I think that planning has to become a little bit of an intuitive process, and it's got to feel like our own if it's something that we're going to be able to come back to regularly. So work in a way that opens you up and inspires you. And what I mean by that is, sometimes for me, and my team knows this because I'll send them pictures of this, strategic planning doesn't look like sitting, in front of a computer and opening up a Google Doc and being like, in January, we're going to do this. It's a lot more of a design-based process for me. I will go to the store. I will buy, big Post-it pads like this one I've got here. I will lay out papers all over the place. I will draw maps of what I might want to accomplish. And it's a really important way for me to get a little bit creative with my thinking. And so I would encourage you, whether it's something like creating a vision board for the year, and then, writing out kind of ideas of things that you want to accomplish. Or for some of you, it might feel really natural and organic to sit in front of a Google Doc and type things up. But to come up with a way that as you take these strategies that we're going to talk about today and put them into planning mode, that you really, really make a point to make it your own, so that you can not only get ideas out on paper, but that you can actually call in the areas that you personally want to refine and grow. Because I think that sometimes, like Cecily called for an interest, is this a personal process or is it a professional process? Is this about the business? And it is, but if it isn't about who we're aiming to become as leaders, it's not going to be something that we feel deeply connected to. So the reflection is the first step in that process. And then next, what we do is we return to our mission. So curious to hear, how many of you have a mission for your company? Have you defined it? Have you documented it? Does it live somewhere? And if so, does anyone want to share it? And you can share in the chat or you can share out loud. But do you have a mission is the question.
We have one. I don't know what it is. I have to find it.
Okay. Anyone else? Anyone else got a mission? All right. Well, we went through a process this year of refining ours. Ours is to advance the work of ambitious humans to create a more equitable society. So this has to do with our company's core belief that business is actually going to be the most powerful way to reshape the future of our society. We think it's going to take a lot longer for government to catch up. And there are a lot of causes that companies care about that they can actually take action on now to shape that future. So our goal is to be supportive of those ambitious humans who are looking to reshape society. So that's our mission. And so what I see is the mission is the foundation to our strategic plan. And so if you have a mission and you've got your piece of paper, go ahead and take a moment to write your mission at the top, or just put mission, little colon there, and say, come back to. If you don't have a mission, it is an area where you need to reflect. And ultimately, it's the sentence that defines your purpose for being in business. Especially for us entrepreneurs, there is always a reason why. So this is your why when it comes to the work that you do. And if you do have a mission already, it's an important moment, especially with all the lessons that we've had in the past year, to just say, does it need any adjustment? Does it need refining? Is my team really aligned around this mission still? Has the mission changed? And there are a lot of people whose missions changed this year, who, for us, we saw a lot of companies that felt called to do something bigger than what they had been doing previously, because I think there was this ethos of, if I'm going to work during the middle of a global pandemic, I better be doing it for a damn good reason. And so it's an important moment, if you don't have a mission, to make sure you make space to define one. And if you do, ask if you need to refine it. And then if you've got that mission, again, the idea is the mission is the framework, the foundation to this plan we're building. But what we need if we're building a plan is structure. And so this is where we bring in what I like to call in my planning process our pillars. And pillars are the elements or areas that are essential to a healthy functioning business. So if your business was a human body, the pillars would be its organs. And with the exception of maybe like a rare appendix here and there, if you take away one of these pillars, things really cannot function. And to be in peak health and growth, you need to have them function well and in harmony. So the pillars make up your strategic plan because each of them will represent an area that you need to set an intention and some goals. And then this is the areas you can continue to define over time. So if you did bring Post-it notes today, grab them. And if you don't, that's okay. You can just still do it on paper. But the goal here is to think about the pillars for your company. So these are some common pillars. There also are company's pillars. And when we went into strategic planning mode, the pillars defined the areas of discussion, the areas of reflection for us as a company. And so the pillars are going to look unique for everybody's business. You know, the pillars for somebody who's a solopreneur might be really quite different than somebody who has a team. the pillars for a business focused in client services are going to look very different than somebody who works in a product-based business. But these are our core 10. So here's our action moment. Grab a Post-it note or an area of your paper and create a list of what you think might be your pillars. And again, these are the areas that if you don't think about, if you don't focus on, things fall short. Communication might be a pillar. Clients is a core pillar for us. If we don't have the right clients, and that came up earlier, things get really out of alignment. So one of the ways that you might really identify is recognizing where things felt out of balance this year, or where the structure of the company would crumble if this piece was pulled from the equation. I'm gonna flip my whiteboard here while y'all brainstorm your pillars. I'm going to give this about 2 minutes. And then when you feel called to, you can either share out loud, or you can chime in the chat with what your pillars are. And there's no set number, but I've found that when you go through this exercise, you reach a moment where you've kind of thought through all of the different areas, and then you're like, oh, that feels right. And these are not fixed and forever. You might do some remodeling over time. You might add an addition or change the structure of things as your company grows and evolves. All right. Does anyone have one that they want to share?
I can share.
Go ahead.
So, clients, yeah.
Yep.
We have most people on a subscription, but I have some clients that I do billing for that I just didn't do any billing for. So
Okay.
that's a huge one. Schedules.
Okay.
And then these are a little esoteric. Storage, like I don't know how we refer to this now, but filing, storage, arranging of information, especially in the cloud, is like, that's a piece where if it's not there, like you can just end up doing work over and over again. Or expectations and technology. Okay. Kind of basic.
For storage, let's use organization, because there was two pieces I heard to it. One was, where do you put it, which is, obviously getting organized, but also organization in terms of the thinking, like what is the process behind where we put it? Does that feel true?
Yes,
okay.
Yes.
Okay, so we had organization, and then I missed one: expectations, client schedules, and
technology.
Technology, that's the key one. Okay.
Yeah.
These are beautiful. Anyone else have a pillar they want to share? These are good ones to get the brain moving. And again, I'm going to flash back here to see if this helps. Go ahead.
Advocacy.
Oh, you're a little quiet. Say that again.
Advocacy.
Advocacy. Okay, love it. Any others?
I grouped process with organization.
Okay.
To me, they kind of go together.
Yep, agreed. Put those there together.
I also had technology.
Yep, okay.
And also processes, which I also have as something separate, just to know exactly how you're doing what you're doing.
Beautiful.
Education and accessibility.
Okay. Beautiful.
And then product innovation.
Beautiful. Anyone want to put relationships in there? That came up in some of our lessons, but is there a category that touches on beyond just clients, anything to do with relationships?
I think that's what I'm trying to build more than anything is relationship and community.
Mm.
Yeah.
And another way to think about pillars, you know, that I think is helpful too is you know, from this mindset of like, what makes us different? Or, you know, Gina, in the case of you, like what went into the culture? You know, what are the things that set you apart, or that you decided to really, you know, make your firm founded on, you know? And again, if you pulled any of these pieces out, what wouldn't work? You know, what is essential? Okay. All right. We've got some pillars. These are great. So now we're going to take the pillars and use them structurally as the site where we start to set intentions and goals for the business. So we've got all of our pillars. Hold on to them. And we'll talk about how we align and adjust around them. So the first thing that I want to really dial home here before we dive into, you know, how we might align around them is to just not just make a plan, but also make space to refine the plan over time, to adjust the plan over time. I think, again, as I mentioned at the start of the session, there's a lot of folks that go into planning and go, okay, 12 months, let's lay it out, get it done with, we've got it, let's go. And we really, really had to learn some hard lessons about that in 2020. I can't tell you the number of companies I watched go basically completely tone deaf because they were gung-ho to sticking to a 12-month marketing plan that they had designed, and they looked really disconnected from reality. And we all can find that moment where we're trying to forge ahead and everything is not going in accordance with the plan because the plan is no longer aligned with what we need to be doing. So the encouragement here is to see flexibility as an essential and joyful part of the process. And the way that we can do that is just by carving out time in our calendars to reflect, to reshape, to realign, to dream. I recommend doing this quarterly, if not monthly. But really, you know, taking a time out of your busy schedule to say, is this still where we're hoping to head in the year? Now, the other thing I want to recommend in this moment is to bounce your plans off of other people. If you have a coach, if you have a fellow entrepreneur that you like to work alongside of, if you have members of this group that you know, if you have a Slack channel you're connected to, if you have somebody else that you can bounce your plan off of, do that. And if you don't, seek somebody out in the year ahead, because one of the things that was really powerful for me this year was not only being able to adapt the plan as we went, but having other people to check in with and say, does this feel right to you? Would you do this? What would you do differently? And then the other thing that I want to recommend is just watching out for your overachiever tendencies. And so there's sometimes, and I'm speaking for myself here, I'm you know, if you're familiar with the Enneagram, I am like a 3 to my core. The achiever in me is very, very strong. And so that achiever in me, again, might continue to push forward on the plan, even when everything else is falling apart around me, or everything else is creating a source of friction and saying, this plan no longer works. And I'm just like, but we've got the plan. It's perfect. Let's just execute. And so what I want to call in for you is this question of how do you currently create space for visioning and planning inside of your business? When do you do this work? And don't feel ashamed to say, I don't have time for this right now. That's just an opportunity for us to say, let's create the time. But does anyone have a practice or a ritual or something that they do to carve out this vital and valuable space to step back and realign? Algernon, I'm looking at you, so I'm going to call on you. I'm going to call you in.
Yeah, I was trying to figure out how to explain what I do and have done in the past, which is pretty similar to this post-it process. But every year I've created some kind of board that has like the core themes that I like to focus on, like family, health, whatever that is. And then I have keywords and like goals, SMART goals under each of those. And it's good to reference them whenever I think about it, which can be like once a month or like a couple times during a quarter. So that's been helpful to go back and like just remember what my intentions and core focus was for the year.
I like that a lot. I'm similar, so I definitely, and I bought the boards last weekend, so it's going to happen. I make a vision board for the year, and then I usually pick 1 to as many as 3 core words for the year, and kind of define what that word means, and so that I have a reminder as to why I chose it and what it is, meant to be a daily reminder or mantra around. And I write these on little cards, and then we put them on my son and my husband actually did it with me last year, and we put them on our bathroom mirror, and so that they're somewhere that I see them every day. And nothing was more satisfying as a parent than watching your 9-year-old make his little card that says stay in your lane, which to him means like don't be messing in his little brother's business. And so every time he's out of alignment, we tell him, go look at the mirror. You're supposed to be staying in your lane. That was your focus for the year. But my word for 2020 was flexibility. And just be careful what you wish for with the lesson from that one. Anyone else have a, and again, this is a ritual, this is a reflection. Anyone else have a way that they do this that might be helpful to others?
There's one more thing to that is like, for me, it's a little harder living in the Northwest now, but when we were living in LA, every New Year's Eve, we would go to the beach and just, like have that as the ritual of like being able to start the new year with something refreshing and being in nature and just like letting the waves kind of like wash over the old tendencies of whatever, and then like, have some new healthier ones to start the year with. So some kind of like nature component was helpful too in the past. That was it.
Beautiful. I know Gina's an ocean girl too.
Love the water.
Yeah. Okay. Well, the encouragement here is to just take some of these ideas and make it your own. Is there something you can do in the next week or so that allows you to just take space and again, is it a vision board? Is it drawing a little map of what the year might look like? Or is it completing some of this planning process in a more structured way? So here's some more ideas in terms of structure that might be helpful. And Algernon gets bonus points for being one step ahead here. So the way that we make these visions tangible is by aligning goals around them. So getting the plan off of paper and into motion is really about setting goals for yourself and your team. So what I like to do is once I've got my pillars in place, the first step is I would set an intention for each of them. And again, the intention is different than the goal because the intention is the energy up. What is the spirit that I'm bringing to it? Why is this important to me? So for example, an intention I might set around expectations is, clarity in roles, responsibilities, and communication allows us to build healthier boundaries. Or, what I might set in organization is understanding where things go and why we do things makes work more efficient. That might be an intention. What is the energy of this piece being important? Clients, an intention here could be super simple, working with humans that we love. and helping them achieve their goals. Okay. So it's just a simple statement of like the energy of, and then the goals is where we get into the achievement part. What is the way that you would get a really clear understanding that you are moving forward to progress in that particular area? So we might have one goal in each pillar. We might have 3 goals. We might have 10 goals. But the goal here is to take your pillars and start setting some clear actions that you could take, and to ensure that you can achieve them. Alvin gave a hint here. We make sure that our goals are SMART. So some of you have probably heard this acronym before, but it's really, really essential, because I think that the dreamer in me is kind of known to be like, well, my goal is to take over, I don't know, online learning and make it a lot more accessible and higher conscious to create the next generation of leaders. Great goal, but it's not quite specific enough. It's not quite measurable. It's not quite achievable, relevant, time-based. These are all the ways that we can take a goal and assess, is it really possible? Is it really going to be something that allows me to move forward? So clear enough that it can be taken on by yourself or someone else. This is a really important thing about if the goal is going to be accomplished by somebody else in the business besides you, or if elements of the goal are going to be delegated to somebody. It's got to be clear what success looks like, what the intended outcome of that goal is. Measurable. Okay, how do you know you've done the thing? You know, how do you know that it's accomplished? It's nice to have an idea out there, but again, how am I able to take that moment in time and say, I've hit that milestone? Achievable, looking at the resources you have around you. Is it possible right now? I might have a long-term goal of starting a venture capital firm, but if I don't have the knowledge of how to do that or people around me who can help make it possible, it's probably not achievable in the short term. It can be a long-term goal, but it might not be something I line up in my strategic plan for this year. And I might want to focus on a goal that's upstream of that, like educate myself more in this area, network with new types of people. The next piece is relevance. So one of the ways that we double check our goals is, are they aligned with our intentions? Are they aligned with our pillars? And are they aligned with your role in the organization? This last piece of aligned with your role inside the organization is one of the most important ones, I think, particularly for women to ask ourselves, because there's often times where we're accomplishing what should be other people's goals. And if we have a team, it's a really important part of the process to start passing goals on to other people and working as a leader to coach our team into defining goals for themselves. And so, especially if you're as founder and CEO, recognizing if there are things that you want to accomplish that don't align with that title, you need to either pass that on to someone else, or you need to hire somebody to help with that work. And it might be something like scheduling, for example. So scheduling is a really important one, but the goals that align around scheduling, I would say, are not CEO and founder type goals. This is administrative assistant level work. And so your goal might be to hire somebody who can help in that core area, okay? And then the last piece here is time-based. It is something that we don't just want to throw out there into infamy and say, you know, someday I'd like to do this, but do you want to accomplish it in a month? Do you want to accomplish it in a quarter? Do you want to accomplish it by year end? And again, recognizing that not everything is going to go according to plan, but if we have a realistic sense of time associated with the goal, that's where we can start measuring, are we on track? What do we need to be doing to achieve it? And the last piece in terms of the goals, so again, we've got our pillars, our intentions for each of them, and then goals associated with them. So that's the structure, the way I build strategic plans. The last piece is it ownable? So again, all these goals do not have to be yours, especially if you have a team. They should be things that you can assign other folks to own. And so when we went through our strategic planning process this year, we did strategic planning with our leadership team, and then we did strategic planning with our team. And when we got through all the new ideas and areas that we wanted to work on, the last question before we ended that meeting is, who wants to own what? Because my goal as a leader is not to be the owner and executioner of all of the ideas and plans. My goal as a leader is to align a team so that they can be doing their highest work. And one of the most powerful ways that we can grow a company is by giving people areas to own. It makes them feel like they're a part of the business. And when they accomplish things, they feel like they're a part of the success of things. This also means that goals don't become what I like to call hot potatoes. So they should align with, again, the roles and responsibilities of the humans inside of your organization. So if no one is set up to own it and lead on it, it's not going to be attainable. You might need to put a different goal in place, say, again, hiring somebody or aligning an outside partner to execute. So for example, a common goal that we encountered this year was people who wanted to redo their website or rebrand their business. And again, if we go back to this smart styling, is it achievable? Well, if you're not somebody who has those areas of expertise, it might be all of the other elements, but you might have to recognize that in order to achieve that goal, you need to align with an outside partner or party that has that skill set. So when you look at your goals, just ask yourself this question: is this one for me to own? Do I need to hire somebody else to help? Do I need to sit down with somebody inside of my organization and align this with them to see if it's something they can take on? Or is there an outside partner, a vendor, a piece of technology, something else that needs to be brought into play so that this goal can be taken on? I want to pause here and see if there are questions, comments, feedback in terms of this structure. Does this all make sense to y'all? And I'm going to draw out what it might look like here. So I might take, again, my pillar. I'm going to do technology. And does anyone have an intention around technology that they want to share? This was a couple people's goals, or excuse me, pillars. Like Michelle, this was yours. So what would you say your intention is around technology? Why is this so critical?
It's critical because it's fluid, and we are still, like you make a decision within the technology space and then you realize that things have changed and then you have to keep changing it. And so that, makes it a little frustrating. I'm just really trying to figure out who really has the artificial intelligence to really help us do our streamlining.
Mm-hmm. So would you say your intention here is something along the lines of like staying up to speed on the solutions our team and our clients need?
Yeah, I guess that's, that sort of summarizes it.
Yeah. Okay. I'm going to write it down. And again, the intention should be one sentence, the energy of.
Madeline, are you going to share, the slides and
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Okay. And then, Michelle, what would you say? Maybe we'll do one or two, or maybe even three. Are there any goals that you would say as you go into the year in this area of technology that you have clearly for your team?
Oh yeah, we have actually a really big one, and that is really for like the basic bookkeeping portion of it is to really really try to get things more automated, because what winds up happening is we spend too much time on doing some of this baseline stuff. Mm-hmm. Because we're finding errors as things are coming in through bank feeds and things like that on the QuickBooks side, and really trying to get the artificial intelligence to really help. And as a matter of fact, we are just starting a test of an application to do that. So the goal is really to streamline it so that we can give the clients that real-time feedback, so that we can have those advisory discussions and really get the dashboard set up and really have the meaningful conversations on the KPIs that the clients are looking for. I mean, we're doing it, but it always feels like, because we're always going back and like fixing some of the baseline stuff, that we're struggling for the catch up to have the important numbers that the client is looking for, that we should have in, a little bit more a little bit more readily. So that's the major goal.
So what I would say is like, and this is a big goal. It's, you know, we call these BHAGs, big, hairy, audacious goals, which I love. Automate your baseline bookkeeping. That is your overarching goal in this area for 21. Your upstream goal, what I heard, is that you need to do some evaluation of technology that allows for you to do this. And you know, you can include in that goal the specific tech that you're intending to look at. And then I would have a secondary goal of you know, probably testing that. And probably a third goal around aligning a process. And then those I would see as my step to getting to this big overarching goal of automating our baseline bookkeeping. Does that feel like a good path there?
Yeah, well, that's kind of it. We're already on the testing thing. Like we're doing onboarding with 4:30 today for a piece of technology. So
awesome, awesome. So that's how I might workshop through a pillar. Just to give you all a sense of, I would again take the overarching pillar, break it down into an intention so that I've got the energy of, and then talk myself through the actions. And what often happens is what Michelle described. It's like we've got this big goal first, but we might recognize that we need to come up with a few steps along the way to get to that bigger goal. Does anyone else have one that they want to workshop real quick? Going once. Okay. So the action here is to take your pillar intention and align the necessary goals for the quarter or further. So I recommend, particularly this was a learning lesson for me and my team this year, was that we're actually not doing hard plans further than a quarter out. You know, again, with that joke around kind of the marketing planning going haywire, but I think that we live in a really fast-paced time, particularly in areas like technology, for example, or you know, product innovation. There's so much change that could happen in a quarter inside your business that setting that set of goals for the quarter could be a great way to start. Now, there may be a big year-long goal that you want to break down. You know, I see this a lot, and this is a methodology that if any of you are a fan of the traction method, you know, there's this idea of you come up with a big, you know, goal for the year, and then you break it down into steps that you're focusing on for each quarter. And so that can be a really nice way to kind of take those bite-sized actions towards progress. So for example, here's me workshopping through one of our pillars that we have here inside of our company, which is team. And we put a lot of energy and intention. And my intention last year was just get a team, get some help around me. And we absolutely did that. We've got amazing women on our team. But my intention is a lot clearer now because we spent a lot of time and energy this year sifting through applications. We had a role that was open that we got over 150 applications for, and there was misalignment between the people who were applying for the job and the role itself. And so my intention this year in this area is to align a team of overqualified women that know how to, we call it GSD, get shit done, and play off each other's strengths. Because what really built our culture this year was learning and leaning into other people's abilities and also our team's energy. This year was a year, and I don't think it's going to change quite frankly, where we all had to flex and support each other in different ways because some of us showed up and we were at 50%, and others showed up and they were like, I'm at 120, I've got energy to give. So that's my intention for the year, is to really seek out people who can weave into that culture, and the cores of that culture are GSD and playing off each other's strengths. Now, what this looks like in terms of goals is, one, we have an open job rec. And so my goal number one in this area is to hire the social media specialist that we have an open job rec for. Is this goal mine? It's my goal for the company, but I don't oversee our hiring process at this point. And so this is a goal that I will pass on to my team. My second goal is to build out senior design talent. So when I think about where our strengths are lacking, I know that we need a little bit more overarching design talent. And so that I have a core goal in this area. Now, this is a longer term goal, as you can see, it's a 2021 goal. And so I might even take this one and workshop it a little into a couple of different parts. What has to go into getting that senior design talent? Well, we have to assess what are the skills that go into this role. We have to build a job rec opening. We have to put that out there to the world. We have to reach out to our network. So I might build out those as smaller goals. I'm not actually going to focus on this one right now, though, because it's my 2021 goal and I have some things I want to do first. And then my other big goal, and this is maybe even longer term than 2021, we'll see how the year unfolds, but is to bring on 4 to 5 more full-time employees. And so this is how I'm taking this one area and I'm going short term, long term, big picture. Okay. Any questions there? All right. So the last piece of this process is, with your goals in place, developing a clear sense of the timelines and resources required. So I talked about this a little bit, but consider if there's any goal that feels big and broad and you're looking at it and you're like, okay, I want to do it, but I'm not sure how to dive in. Consider how you might break it down into incremental goals. So a big achievement for the quarter and the year with smaller milestones in between. And so the action I want to take here, and again, I'm happy to workshop one if it's helpful for people, is to just pick one goal and identify the timelines that things might have to happen in, or that you would hope for things to happen in, and the resources required to execute. And if somebody has one they want to throw out to workshop a little bit, I'm happy to do that as well.
Okay, we got to hire somebody this year.
Okay, let's do it. Okay, so the goal is hire someone. Beautiful goal. And we have folks in the room that have done this past year, and so they're going to have feedback for you as to how it is done, right? Important. Okay, so first of all, what are your timelines here? What, is the goal this year, or would you say sooner?
Sooner than this year?
Sooner than end of 21?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's urgent, but I have I don't feel confident in who the person is. Like, okay. I can't describe it, so. Okay. But yeah, it's urgent.
Okay, so there's your initial goal, is identify the role and responsibilities. Does anyone have any thoughts they want to share here? I had two. Was it Melissa and Gina also did hiring this year? Do you have any thoughts here as to what your steps on the way were?
This isn't Gina or Melissa, but the most important thing is what you just mentioned, was figuring out like what the role is going to be and what you really need, and listing out the gaps and like what needs to be delegated has been the most important in terms of like creating any kind of job description before you even start hunting or recruiting.
Yeah. So that's the key one here. Make a list of gaps and delegation items. So one of the things that I recommend, and some of you know this already, but when you get into a moment where you're about to hire, and this is really important and it seems very silly, but I really, really recommend keeping a notebook next to your laptop. And as you work through the day, as you move from task to task, just defining what is it that you're doing all day. And if you're a time tracking person, you can just go back and look. If you're pretty detailed in your time tracking, that can be another way to generate this list. But having a really clear list, what is it that you're spending your time on? And then, I recommend, at least doing that for about a week, especially if it can be like a full week where you're doing a good variety, really kind of touching all the areas in the business that you would be focused on. And then you go through this list with such a scrupulous eye and say, what am I doing that I should be delegating? What am I doing that does not align with what I want to be doing in the business? What could I, and then that's how you start to build this list of gaps. Another thing that we might consider in this area are what are the things that you're not able to get to and why? You know, there's always that something that we keep pushing off in the to-do list, we push off in the to-do list, and there's always a factor here. The factor could be, I don't actually want to do it, and therefore I just keep pushing it off because it doesn't feel like priority to me. Or it could be pushed off because I literally don't have the time. So that becomes the question of what's standing in the way of getting that other thing done. And that's how we get to identify the roles and responsibilities. Now, what's the next step here? I'm going to call on Gina because she got to the next step. So you identified the roles and responsibilities, and then what did you do?
Define your processes.
Yes.
Document them.
And this one is a really important one, but it is the one that folks forget to do because we are so urgent to bring somebody in that we are just like, oh, it's going to help to have another human. But actually, if you don't do this step, you're going to be slower and less efficient, and you're going to feel frustrated, as is the person who you hire, because they're going to be waiting constantly on you for answers. And so it's a really, really important piece to set aside time for. You know, I know a lot of folks who use like half days on Fridays as a mechanism here, where Friday afternoons is where they work on the business and they pick a few core things. And again, those core things could come from this list of what is that other person going to be doing? You know, if I'm going to make them responsible for, you know, managing my calendar, for example, I need to document what the appropriate workflow and tools are around that and how I would expect somebody to get it done.
Madeline, can I add something here?
Yes. Yeah.
I want to caution people about, because this is really more with the client.
Yeah.
In addition to the processes and the job functions, you kind of almost have to then try to push it into see what level the person's at. I'll give you the example. My client hired a COO. She didn't really need a COO. So she hired somebody at a higher level with this title. And then the things that she thought the person was going to do, the person, of course, thought was beneath her. So now what she's going to do is I'm going to be one of the people on a committee for her that we're going to go through and really design the job description. And then sort of more the title, just like, you know, you talk about a title. Are you a manager, or are you, you know, like the, you know, a COO, or you know, whatever that level is, so that you're managing the expectations when the person comes in. So for a smaller company, you have to be really careful, because what happens is you bring somebody in, they think they're at a higher, like you say, you're a manager. And a lot of times people who are managers don't think they have to do any work, that they're telling everybody else what to do. And you have to be really careful with that. I've seen that happen. So it's just it's a caution where you're trying to, you know, manage it, and also too, to be able to have that person come in, and maybe depending on how big the company gets, is that person can take on more responsibility and move into a role, but you don't want to like put it at the wrong level when you hire them.
That's such great feedback, Michelle. Like that, it's so critical. I had an interesting conversation with a woman who I've known my whole entire career, and she's worked in different tech leadership roles in you know, tech companies that are trying to reach accounting firms. And I spoke with her, and I noticed she had kind of bounced around between a couple companies this past year. And she told that exact story of, well, I was hired as a COO, but what I was really doing all day was making outbound sales calls. And so, you know, that was part of the reason she left, is because what she was actually doing day to day did not align at all. And she was obviously attracted to that executive type title. And then she was like, wait, what am I doing all day? And so really making sure there's an alignment between the level of skill you need and also the title that you give that role, so that you're attracting somebody who's got that talent or aspires to have that talent and is working towards that level of leadership. Yeah, great feedback there. So we go define the role and responsibilities, define and document the processes. The third piece I'm going to say is put it out there. And does anyone have any key, actually, I missed a step. That's going to be 4. 3 is write the description. Michelle gave us that. And does anyone who hired this year have any advice on these last, so step 3 and step 4, writing the description and putting it out there? Because, you know, anybody can throw a job posting up on Indeed or LinkedIn. We had a lot of success this year in terms of reaching to our network first, reaching to the people we know and saying, hey, this is what we're hiring for. Going to communities that were designed for entrepreneurial women and putting it there, as opposed to just like putting it out to the broad-based world. So putting some thought into where you're putting it out there. But does anybody have any thoughts or recommendations based off of their experiences in that arena? Like, do you know, as opposed to your first and second round of hiring, what do you feel like you did differently to get the right humans in the door?
I don't necessarily know I did anything differently. I did a round of hiring, and there were 3 people. There were 4 people that I was really interested in, and I hired 2 of them. And then the 3rd gal who I really wanted, I kind of kept on hold. But it was all in the same process. What I didn't really vet out well was in this new era of working remotely. I think the 2 gals I first hired were doing a lot of other jobs on the side. So they weren't showing up consistently. And so I didn't really vet that out well. Like, what are you doing on the side? Like, I knew one gal kind of had a few clients of her own, and I told her, as long as you're not trying to grow your business, I'm okay with that. But I think she wasn't fully honest. And the other gal definitely wasn't honest. She, I think, had a full-time thing she was doing on the side. Or no, she had a full-time thing and was trying to fit this in. So with the next gal I hired, I made sure that this was it. She was fully committed full-time to this, and she was a new mom. So I knew that likely she wasn't trying to fit this in as extra income. So that's a big challenge right now with people remote, thinking they can, you know, juggle multiple employers at the same time. And I think you just don't have the right headspace to do that.
Yep. So I want to take a couple out of those lessons learned. So the last pieces I would add here are, so getting the description right, really writing something that speaks to who you are as a company, reaching out to your community, Cecily, of other folks that you know in this industry and space to get suggestions. There are other women in this group who would gladly share role descriptions with you that you could modify and make your own. Put it out there. And, you know, I always recommend start with a network. Somebody who knows somebody you know is going to be a stronger candidate because they're going to feel more responsible to you. But there are also a lot of really talented folks out there. The one big caveat is recognizing that, you know, you're going to have to carve out time to handle the volume of inquiry that you might receive if you use a more general site. The last pieces I would put in place is defining what your interview process and questions look like. You know, what are the things that is really important for you to know? It's important for you to know somebody's skill set. It's important to know if they feel like a good culture fit. Gina learned it's really important to know, do you have other work going on? How much time are you going to be dedicating to this role? What is your work schedule? A big one I've had a lot of people learn to ask this year is, what is your work setup? Because everybody thinks they can work from home. And then you've got, you know, new team members who don't have, you know, the right equipment they need, or they don't have space dedicated in their home. And we don't want to be biased against candidates for that, but also people need to be set up to work successfully. And so you might want to know going in if somebody has a home office, or if they have the equipment, or is that something that you need to be budgeting and helping support them in getting. And for the right candidate, it might be worth it to buy them the right laptop and an external monitor. But for other folks, you know, it might be on the table. So define the questions and the process. You know, is there going to be an interview with you? Who else? You know, is there going to be an interview with your husband? Is there going to be a final interview? Is there going to be anything to test if their skills and ability are aligned with what you're asking for? And then the last piece, and this is where we often forget, is determine what employee onboarding looks like. So again, have you carved out time in your calendar to train somebody? It's not enough to just be like, here's all of our processes. You need to set up daily time to sync with this human, to understand, how they're getting up to speed. We have a process inside our company, a 30, 60, 90 day check-in process. And we actually hire people on a contract basis because, this was something that I learned pretty early on, was that, it's one thing to get a great person on paper. It's another thing to get a great person in an interview. And it's a really amazing thing to get all those same things on the first day somebody shows up for the job. And so what are the little kind of triggers you might put in place as part of your onboarding process to make sure that somebody is getting up to speed on the role, and to really check in to make sure the person you hired is what you hope to bring into place for your organization? So that might be how I break that big goal down. And then you could take that and say, okay, maybe in Q1, I want to take on the first three pieces of this. I just want to get really clear on what I'm looking for, and then maybe in Q2, maybe you want to do these all in Q1. And so you set 2 goals a month to focus on. And some of them are going to have to be flexible, right? The put it out there moment is let's see what we get. But is that helpful, Cecily?
Yes.
Awesome.
I want to clarify with everybody. My husband is my partner.
Yeah. He's her business partner, and he's very supportive of what she does. He's a cool guy. Awesome. Okay. So just the last couple pieces here, and then we'll hop off for the day. But this, as I mentioned to Michelle, is content that we'll share. And we've got something that we're going to be kickstarting in the new year, which is a good way for us to continue having these kinds of conversations. So I'll talk about that in just a sec. But the last piece that I think in terms of questions that you should write down to think about as you go into strategic planning and taking these goals and turning them into actions is, again, how do the roles with your company align with the goals you've envisioned? So is there somebody who can take on this goal and run with it? It's really important for you to have regular reviews with your team and set ambitions for them. And so that's one core question. Another one that I like to ask is, who is best suited to lead on each pillar? So again, one of the ways that we can elevate people inside of our organization is to say, oh, wow, there's somebody in our team who's actually really passionate about this organization piece, and they're really good at it. So maybe we make them the lead on this pillar, and maybe your job is to help build the goals with them, or maybe have them take them on entirely. We brought on a head of operations this year, and the operations pillar is her world. I have downloaded some visions of what I would hope to see her accomplish, and some things that I know that aren't working. And we used our strategic plan in time for the team to really give some tough critiques as to what wasn't working. But I know that that's her area to own. And then again, what do you need to put in place to ensure that things stay on track, or that your team stays on track? Do you need to put in place milestones? Do you need to put in place metrics? Do you need to put in place reporting? Or is it simply that you need to have a quarterly review moment on your calendar where you're coming back to these goals that you've set forth to see how you're doing and reassess and realign? And the last piece I want to recommend is that if you're somebody who has a team in place, the new year is such an important time for us to stand at the helm of our ship and say, this is where we're headed for the year. I have a lot of respect for companies that take time out of the regular schedule of doing business to get everybody on the same page. And so, when I was an employee at Intuit, this was one thing that I thought that they did really well. And these were called all hands meetings, and we did them quarterly. And then we did a big annual kickoff to really just say, this is the mission and vision, and this is what we're aiming for this year. So I want you to just think about, what are you making happen to align your mission and plan for the year, and get anybody who's a stakeholder in those plans on board. I also think, again, making sure that you have regular moments where you can discuss any shifts as they arrive. Quarterly, I think, is a bare minimum here. Monthly. During COVID, this was weekly for my team, to be honest. I just had, in my to-do notes on our Monday meeting, state of the company, because every week it seemed like things were changing. And so again, this is putting on your leadership hat and saying, when do I need to show up and share the things that are changing in the strategy, so that not only do I know what we're changing or realigning on, but the team knows. And then as your company grows, I have a strong recommendation here to get your team actually involved in the strategic planning process. it really brought a level of clarity to our team to do strategic planning as a group this year. I also recommend, if this is something that's not your strong suit, you can always lean on an outside person to come in and help facilitate this conversation for your team. But again, the process we went through with our team was the same as what I guided today. We as leaders started with the pillars, and we put down some of our goals for the year based off of our intentions in each area. And then we had the team bring in their goals for the year. We talked through them so that everybody was on the same page. And at the end of the conversation, we said, okay, who's gonna own what? And now we know what people are rolling with as we head into the new year. And then we're checking in on those things as we go. I know we're over time here, but these are my 3 big takeaways here for today. So start with your pillars, identify the primary architecture that allows you to shape your intentions and visions for the company in the year ahead. Return to them regularly, not just annually. Build your goals from your intentions. So again, intentions is the energy of, and you want to elaborate your goals from that primary pillar to make them smart and align with the resources required so you have a clear sense of direction and the ability to prioritize and align anyone needed accordingly. And last is to align the organization around the plan, even if it's just 2 people, even if it's a team of 3. Take a moment to get everyone on the same page. It's a powerful action as a leader and to establish that vision, because it gives you the opportunity to say it out loud, and something really, really powerful happens when we take these ideas and we put them out into the world so that they can start getting into action. Okay, the last thing I want to share with you today is just these 3 quick things. Keep an eye out for something coming in 2021. We're building a member Slack channel. We've been asked for this. You all want an opportunity to connect with each other, ask each other for resources. So this is coming as part of the Learning Lab membership in 2021. So you're going to get an email invitation asking you for that. The second thing is, I highly recommend, if you haven't already, connect for virtual coffee with another member of this group. Slack will have a directory inside of it so you can see everybody who's a part of the community, and then reach out to somebody. Just have a virtual cup of coffee, maybe check in, ask how they're going on their goals, so you've got a little accountability buddy as you head into the new year. And then the last piece is, if you're valuing these sessions, particularly as we establish this more workshop style as we head into the new year, refer a friend. We're still going to continue doing the first month free on Learning Lab, because we think it's really important for people to just get a chance to see and share what we're up to. All right. Any questions before we hop off today, or big takeaways that landed for people?
Just reminding me to take the time to do this, and it's just been like such chaos, and so this is grounding. Thank you.
Good. Glad we could make the space for it. Anyone else? Any other questions? Okay. Well, thank you all for the time, for setting the intention for yourself to work on the work this week. And I wish you all just a really restful season. For those of you who aren't taking time off, make sure to take care of yourself in the in-between time. And for those of you that are, I hope you find just a lot of peace and restoration and time to reflect before you dive into the big year that's coming. So take care of yourselves. Thank you all for your fearless shares today. It was awesome.
Thank you.
Bye, y'all.